Hey, good morning everybody. Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids on a brisk New Hampshire morning. Today in this video, we're going to look at 4 strange knives. So here's the background on this video. I've seen the knives we're about to look at over the years on websites at different shows, and they've always caught my attention, but the question I've been asking on a regular basis about them is, do they actually work? Are they actually functional? What I'm going to do right now is show you the 4 knives and give you a sense of why they stood out to me and also some of my questions about them. And then I'm going to put them into use and we're going to see, despite the fact that they're a little weird, do they actually work? This is the first one. This is the Hoffman Harpoon XL. It's from Tops Knives. And I mean, when you look at it, you could see why they would call it a harpoon. It looks like a harpoon. But the fact that they wrap the handle like this seems to imply, yeah, you can use it as a knife, and then if you want to attach it to, you know, a tree branch, something that's sturdy, so you can actually use it like a spear or a harpoon, you can also use it that way. So I saw it and I thought, okay, is it really just a very sharp piece of steel that you're going to attach to something so you can throw it, or can you actually use it as a knife? So we're going to test it out and see what we think. The Hoffman Harpoon XL from Tops. Here's your second knife. It's the Boker Gnome. Tiny little fixed blade, as you can see. The thing that jumped out to me was how cool looking it is, but then I thought to myself, okay, it's so small, should you just carry around like a very small, you know, utility blade that you can extend out and retract back in, or is there something that's special about this? It is cool. You get basically one finger on it and then you wrap your hand around the lanyard to cut, but I want to see if this thing will actually, you know, effectively cut EDC type work. I don't think this is an outdoor knife, but we'll do a little bit of work with this thing and see if it actually is functional. This is the third knife we're going to look at, and this is the Viper Scout from Tops. And you can see the thing that makes this unique is basically the angle of the blade as compared to the handle. So, you know, you imagine the steel that runs the whole way through here, and essentially it goes like this and then up, as opposed to it just being basically a straight, even line. So I've picked this up multiple times at shows and thought, man, that feels really ergonomic. I wonder what it looks like to actually use it. So a little bit of a strange shape there, but we're going to test it out and see what we think about it. The last knife we're going to talk about is all about looks and not function, which is a little strange to say that because the knife is the SE6, which is an awesome outdoor knife. This is my other SE6, which I love. This is probably in the top 3 survival knives that I've ever used. But the thing I want to focus on about this one is the fact that it looks like this and not like this. Like this, but not like this. So yeah, it's all about that venom green and the blaze orange. And when you contrast the two, you know, what people always say about this color is, well, if you drop it in the woods, you'll definitely be able to find it more easily than, you know, basically the black and gray version. So what we're going to do is test that concept out. We know the knife works well. The SE6 is a great knife, but let's test the concept. If I drop this one in the woods versus this one in the woods, is this notably easier to find than this one? So yeah, we're going to give it a shot and see how the color actually makes a difference when it comes to, you know, it being maybe left out there in the woods or dropped somewhere around camp. There you have a quick rundown on the concept behind this video and looking at the 4 knives. Now let's put them into use and see if they actually work well or they're just kind of weird. All right, so let's do a little maybe carving with it. Had a lot of rain here the last few days in New Hampshire, so it's definitely damp here. So right off the bat, I can tell you that, I mean, it's a pretty thick blade. I think it's a 1/4 inch, but it certainly can do this type of, you know, slicing and cutting. It's not going to function like a bushcraft knife. It's not designed to be that. But just to show you that it is able to do a little bit of this. Bigger question for me is, how does it feel when you're actually doing this? You can see it's got some, I would call it kind of medium as far as the level of how aggressive the jimping is. So I wouldn't want to have to carve, you know, spoons and bowls all day long, but again, that's not what it's designed for. But it certainly can do some of these little carving tasks like this, making a feather stick. So just for kicks here, let's try a little notch, see how hard it is to, maybe if you were, you know, working on a trap or something. I can tell you, want to be aware, I mean, the blade goes all the way back right to the edge there, so careful with your hand here because you could definitely, if you slip, you could definitely cut yourself. But it's definitely an odd shaped knife. I mean, that's why we're making this knife as part of this video, but it's doing okay. You can see here, if you were working on a figure 4, that this could definitely do the job. I can definitely tell you about this knife. It's going to be strong. I don't have any hesitations about stabbing in and prying with this thing. It's gonna be a big, strong knife, or a strangely shaped strong knife, I should say. No issues whatsoever. Let me roll in some footage here just to show you what it looks like to use the knife in the kitchen at home. And you know, we've been talking about what a knife is designed for, and then also how it can be used even if it's not designed for that specific purpose. This is definitely not meant to be a kitchen knife, but it can be used for kitchen tasks. And yeah, I mean, it does fine. It's not a huge blade. Doesn't have a super long cutting edge, so it's not like you've got, you know, it's just not designed to be slicing through, you know, a lot of vegetables or meats or things like that. But you could definitely use it in the kitchen and then use it out in your camp kitchen as well if you didn't have another cutting tool. Okay, we're taking a look at the ESEE knives here. Let me start by just showing you what they look like just sitting on a rock in front of me, pretty much side by side, so you can see basically the contrast, and we're about probably 6 feet away from this rock right in front of me. So here they are right in front of me. I mean, obviously you can see the venom green and the orange much more easily here. They're on a, you know, just gray background and with a gray handle and a black blade. The other one's going to stand out pretty clearly. Now, from this far away, if I looked over, I'd definitely go, yeah, there's two knives. I wouldn't go, oh yeah, I only see one. I mean, obviously I can see two. So I'll back away a little bit, and then let's see how quickly the gray one starts to kind of camouflage itself in to the color of the stone. So I'm back here at about probably 35 feet, and I mean, obviously you can see both of them still. Again, the venom green is still popping and the orange is still popping much more than the gray. But I would definitely, if I looked over there, I would say there's two things on that rock, even if I couldn't, you know, tell what they are. I'm back at 50 feet now, and I'm looking at the two knives that have been stabbed into just a big oak tree there in this kind of clearing. And I can tell you, like, no doubt right now as I'm looking at it, I can see, obviously, the green and orange one. And the knife, if I didn't know the gray and black knife was underneath it, I would just be immediately drawn to the venom green and the orange. So at 50 feet, and it's, you know, a little after 3 o'clock here, sunset this time of year is right after, maybe it's like 4:08 this time of year, 4:06, something like that. And so yeah, I could definitely pick up the bright one, and the other one quite hard to see. So I'm not totally shocked here as I walk over to get the knives. I mean, obviously you would expect to see the bright orange one more easily, but I'm gonna keep looking into this a little bit more, because, you know, people are always like, yeah, get the blaze orange because it's so easy to see. But I was wondering, is it that different? And thus far, it's significantly different at 50 feet, basically being able to see it versus not being able to see it. As the sun starts to really go down, the concept is playing itself out accurately, that yes, the lime green definitely and the orange definitely is easier to pick up. What I've done here is put the knives on the ground and then covered them up with some leaves, so you can just see maybe like 1.5 inches, 2 inches of the tip of the knife. And yeah, I mean, you can clearly pick up the venom green much more easily than the black of the other ESEE6. So the theory has played itself out, as people have said, but I've tested it. I put it through my paces, and I would definitely say, if you're someone who's likely to drop a knife, or if you find yourself losing knives often and you want to get an ESEE6 but you don't want to lose it, the venom green and blaze orange definitely the way to go. Or, you know, put a big bright orange lanyard with a bunch of, I don't know, bells and whistles on it, so the lanyard will stand out in venom green or orange, so that you can see it more easily if you drop your black ESEE6 in the woods. I'm going to do some EDC tasks with the Gnome now, and then I'm going to EDC it for a bit just to see how it feels, you know, riding in my pocket. How often do I use it? How do I use it? But just as kind of a test, we're going to cut some cordage, cut some webbing. I've got some cardboard as well. And how we're going to do is we're going to hold it with the pinch there and then put the leather cordage in my hand. So that's kind of what our grip looks like. So I got some clothesline here. That's easy enough to do. The blade isn't super long, so it's not like you're gonna be able to slice through, you know, 5 or 6 times over, but just to show you, there's 2. Let's see how it goes, how it works now. Definitely does the job. Even just in those first 2 cuts, I don't feel like it's gonna go flying out of my hand or something like that. Feels like I've got good control of it because I've got that cordage. I think without the cordage, it would be a little bit, I don't know, feel a little stranger, but I do feel like I've got good control with the pinch and then the leather cordage there. So yeah, this is the first time I've used it, so I can tell you just initially as I'm cutting, it feels good. my initial reaction after just doing whatever 4 or 5 cuts is, yes, I would put this in the little leather sheath, leather pouch, and then EDC it. So that's cool. Let's move on to some webbing now. Just some standard webbing to cut. So just to show you, I mean, look at the webbing and then the size of the blade. There's not a lot of extra space on the blade when we're slicing the webbing here. Yeah, so I got about, with that cut, say about like 90% through, 80% through. But just the length of pull it's a little bit short for cutting something like this. Let's try again. There we go. Just got to really give it some English. So I'm holding the webbing tight and I'm really pushing the blade against it as I'm slicing. So when I do that, definitely does the job. Just for kicks, let's double this over and see if I can cut through a second layer of the webbing. I don't think it's going to work too well, but we'll try. No, I did the same thing. It's probably about 80% through both of them, but then with the second slice, yeah, it's doing it. So once more with the webbing, just once over, one loop. Yeah, doing the job. Slice a little cardboard here. So it is, there we go. It is, I mean, it's having a little trouble. Yeah, you can see it's definitely tearing a little bit there. It does feel a little thick as I start the slicing process, but there we go. That's a little bit better. Gotta keep it on camera here. Yeah, you can see. I mean, it's just kind of pushing it over. It's not slicing it per se. Gotta get a good grip on the cardboard though. And once you get into it, it seems to work okay. That seems to do all right. But sometimes getting into the actual cardboard is tough. Alright guys, so quick update on the Boker Gnome. I've been able to use this as an everyday carry knife. The first thing I'll tell you is that it fits nicely into this sheath, and then, you know, it rides comfortably in your pocket. It's definitely a very small knife. My general preference I've found over the years though is that like a pocket knife like this, or you know, like a Swiss Army knife, or like a case folding knife, having that in my pocket without a pocket clip is just not my preference. So there is the little loop there so you could run it on a belt, but in general I don't want to have this on my belt either. So as a preference, I'm going to tend toward a pocket knife that has a clip. The other thing I found is that while it cuts generally pretty well, the grind on this thing, I don't know if you can see it, I'm going to put down the sheath, but the grind on this thing is a little bit odd. It's not, so there's meant to be a little bit of curve, but I just don't feel like it was ground very well. It's just kind of, it's uneven. Kind of goes like this, and then a little bit too hard of an angle, and it's even on this side here, I don't know if you can see it there, but it's sharpened a little strangely. So anyhow, I think that's part of the reason that it was not functioning as well as I hoped doing some of those EDC tasks, just because it was kind of getting hung up on the blade there. But that being said, I do think the concept is really cool, and well, I'll give you a summary of thoughts of all these knives in a minute, but I think that you can make a knife that's basically like a one finger, one thumb hold, and yet still feel like it's secure in hand is kind of a neat concept. But I did look at the grind quite a bit and was looking at it, and then I was like, hey, that's probably part of the reason that it's not slicing as nicely as I hoped it would. I want to talk about the Viper Scout real quick, and then we're going to wrap up and give you final thoughts on these 4 knives. I'll roll in some footage here so you can see what it looks like in use. The ergonomics on this knife I really do like. So it's kind of strange looking, but I think the ergonomics are really good. I don't love the knife overall because of the flat grind, and then the jimping's a little too aggressive for me. But if those two things were toned down, if they put like less jimping and a Scandi grind on this, I would love it. So if you don't mind the jimping and you like a flat grind, I think the ergonomics on this thing are really, I mean, it adds a lot of value for what you're paying and what you're going to get out of this knife. All right, let's wrap up here talking about these 4 strange knives. First off, the Hoffman Harpoon XL from Tops. So you'll notice in this video, I didn't tie this to a pole and then launch this thing at an animal or at a tree or something like that. Honestly, I would never purchase it to use it for that purpose. Even if it's built for that, I just don't have a use for that type of weapon or tool in the woods that often where I live in New Hampshire. The test for me was to see, yeah, if that's the primary use, could you also use it as a knife? And I would say yes. You know, would I choose a normal bushcrafting or survival knife over this? Yeah, but it definitely did the job. That jimping is a little bit aggressive to be using it for a really long amount of time, but I was actually pretty impressed. For a strange looking knife, it did the job quite well. And if you want something really unique to take out into the woods, this could be something that you'd consider. I do think the paracord wrap makes a big difference. It made it pretty comfortable to hold in hand, but strange looking knife, but definitely did the outdoor tasks that I placed in front of it. Secondly, the ESEE 6 in Venom Green and with the Blaze Orange, absolutely. I think the evidence on the video was clear, but you can definitely see this thing more easily than the gray and black one. Not just like, oh, it's a little bit better, it's a little easier to find. I mean, it's a notable difference. So again, if you're somebody who loses knives often or you're constantly misplacing things, especially out in the woods, this could be a good option for you. Maybe look at this one if you want to get an ESEE or an ESEE 6, get it in this color because it's a lot less likely that you're going to lose this one. Third up, the Boker Gnome. I mentioned the grind on this one. I just think that was probably, an issue when they were sharpening it up and everything. I was surprised that something this small could be comfortable in hand, when I was cutting things. What I can tell you though is just your length of pull, because it is so short, you're not going to be effectively slicing a ton of things. But I do think it's pretty unique. Would I use this as an EDC knife to replace a folding knife in my pocket? I wouldn't. But if you like a tiny little unique knife and you don't mind something that's got a relatively small blade, this is one I would consider checking out. And they do have a couple different versions as far as not just this color, but a couple different styles as far as the overall look of it is similar, but different handles and things like that. So Boker Gnome, yeah, it's cool. I'm gonna stick with my standard folding knife, but it caught my attention, and it's probably worth checking out if you want something unique. Last up, the Viper here. Yeah, I mean, I already kind of summarized it, but the ergonomics I think are really good. It's unique and different. I would like a Scandi grind on this thing, less jimping, maybe the handle a little bit thicker, and it would move probably into the I love it category. Right now it's in the I like it or even I like it a lot category, but it would move into the I love it category if they could make a couple little changes to this. Strange looking, but the ergonomics actually were pretty impressive. All right, it is freezing cold here in New Hampshire. The sun's going down, so I'm gonna wrap up here. But I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on these 4 knives. And then also if there are other weird, strange looking, but particularly if they're functional knives that you know of, leave comments, leave the names of them down below in the comment section. I'll be interested to kind of, dig in the future into other strange, maybe weird looking, but knives that actually do a good job at some things. Thanks as always for checking out the videos here on YouTube. Please subscribe to Everyday Tactical Vids if you haven't done so already. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, check us out on Instagram, Tumblr, and Vero as well. More videos coming soon. Take care.